A group of missing hikers, a journey gone wrong, and 9 bodies mysteriously buried under the ice. Welcome to Season 1, Episode 4 of Nonfiction Fridays, the series where I share unbelievable things that really happened. In this episode, we'll be talking about the Dyatlov Pass Incident that took place in Soviet-era Russia in 1959 when 9 university students went missing, and to this day, the story of what happened to them is still unknown. Today, I'll be sharing what little we do know about how their bodies were found, and you can come to your own conclusions and maybe dive into this black hole conspiracy that so many others have also fallen into. 2 figures are trudging through ice and snow. It's February in 1959, and these 2 men are on a mission. Whether or not that mission will be a rescue or a recovery remains to be seen. 9 hikers have gone missing, and somewhere in this frozen landscape, they hope they are still waiting to be saved. The rescue crew has already spent 10 days searching with no results, and it's the end of the day. These 2 men are about to give up and go back to base camp when they kind of spot something in the distance. It's this sort of black-gray shape against the snow. As they get closer, they realize it's a tarpaulin, and it's set up between 2 ridgepoles, and they realize it's a tent. It's half covered and sort of buckled by the recent snowfall, and it would have been so easy to miss. But luckily, they didn't miss it. And this first discovery is about to set a chain of events that would be so mysterious and so confusing that it still baffles experts to this day. These 2 men are desperate to try and save these people who they think could be still inside, so they do whatever they can to get in as quickly as possible. And what they see there is the first clue in a chain of clues that lead to no real conclusion. As is typical in this climate, when you open up, there is sort of a buffer between this freezing climate that you're in with constant snow, wind, and ice. So what you'll do is you put your packs and your jackets as sort of an insulative layer on the ground and against the walls. Things look really tidy. There's, rows of boots on one side, rows of boots on another side. Most things are still packed away, but there is evidence of people being there. It's almost as if as if the entire group just got up and walked out. It's very odd. There's a camera laying out a diary, a can that they kept money in. There's a bag of bread and cereal sort of tucked away really nicely. There's a stove, a camp stove in the middle. And weirdly, it has like a packet of hot cocoa that looks like it was about to just be reheated, like someone was making cocoa. And there's also this napkin with neat little slices of ham, but there's no one inside, not at all. There's no sign of any body inside that tent. And at first that makes these 2 searchers feel kind of relieved. They think, oh good, they're not, lying in here, passed away already. They kind of feel this sense of relief. But then as it kind of sets in, they realize how strange this is, that they are in the absolute middle of nowhere, that you have to hike very far to get into it. It's a climate that is completely unforgiving, that you will die if you are exposed in it. It's just snow, it's ice, it's freezing temperatures, it's wind. It would make no sense for these people to just sort of get up and walk out. It's not like, a campground in California. We're talking about Dead Mountain, a name which would become notorious, where, it's not just a walk in a park. You have to know what you're doing in this climate. So let's back up a little bit and go to January 23rd, where a group of university students who are all hikers are getting ready and preparing for this trip that they're going on. They're all excited. They're all talking, checking lists, checking the medical supplies, doing their final packs, getting the group diary, which they would all share, getting their own diaries, getting the camera ready, basically just all gathered around in a room at their university, this sort of buzz of excitement in the air. Soviet-era Russia really encouraged science and exploration in its youth, and that's exactly what this group was doing. They were considered grade 2 hikers, and this trip was going to be the test to get them to grade 3, which was the highest available certification for hiking in the country at that time. So it was a big deal. And these are all really experienced people, young people, but very experienced. A lot of them have these crazy stories. People will tell about them on past trips where one guy chased a bear with just a club, chased it away from camp. Another girl was shot accidentally in the leg, and she had to be carried out of a mountain, and she was like perfectly fine and chill about it. These are tough people. They know what they're doing, and they're so excited about this trip because they're ready for this test. And they're as prepared can be. So this is not a case of inexperienced people doing something stupid and thinking they're ready for something when they're not. These are people who have trained for this for a long time. They have a great leader. They are ready to go. They're excited. They have the university behind them. They've got their plans scoped out. They're essentially just young people excited to get going. And just to give you an idea of how experienced they had to be for this grade 3 test, I wrote down the requirements, and they must cover 186 miles, with 1/3 of that in challenging terrain. It must be at least 16 days long, with 8 nights spent in an uninhabited region and 6 nights in a tent. And once completed, they would be considered masters of sport, and they would actually be allowed to teach these skills. And it was a distinction that just everybody wanted. So they're in this university room at the end of January, and they're ready to go. They've finished all their last minute checks, and they excitedly go to the train station to start this journey, having no idea that it would be their last. Fast forward to February 16th. It is 3 days after they are supposed to have returned from their trip, but they're nowhere to be found. Now, the university is not worried at all. It's winter, it's a winter hike, and they think delays happen. They're so confident in this group of young people that they are certain that the likelihood of something going wrong is so small that they just can't be bothered to be worried about it. But the families of these kids start getting a little panicky and eventually pressure the school into doing something. So 4 days after this initial worry from the families, the university agrees to send a telegram to the closest village, like the stopping point where this group would have gotten off to go up to Dead Mountain and camp there. So they send the telegram off all this time later, and they get a reply simply saying the group did not return. And this is the first time there's sort of like red flags a little bit going on, but the university still is not convinced that something needs to be done. It's another 4 days before the search even begins, and another few days after that before the tent is even found. Now we've found the tent, but there are no bodies inside, and the check of the tent and all its materials begins, but it is completely unprofessional, unstructured, and was later described as a bit of a mess, as people were just so eager to get any clue they could that they were not willing to wait for proper channels, proper inspectors to come and forensically analyze everything. So they kind of just dive in looking for anything they can find. Any tracks that would have been around the tent have been completely covered by the snow and ice that would have taken place from whenever they went missing, whatever day that was on their trip. So there are no clues which way they even would have gone. So people are basically just kind of searching in the dark. This just expanse of snow, just sort of hoping against hope that they see something. It's actually 2 men who aren't even looking. They're part of the search party, but they've been assigned the kind of mundane task of finding a camp spot for the night. They're actually close to a mile away from the tent site itself, so they're not expecting to find anything, but naturally, this is just the way it works sometimes. They're the ones who spot something. And it would have been so easy to miss in this sort of snowy landscape, but they notice that there's a cedar, and something about the boughs of the tree do not look quite right. They're kind of like charred. So they think this is kind of curious, and they get closer, and they're wondering if this could have been a campsite in itself, but they are determining no, it doesn't have any of the signs of that, and they're sort of just looking around when one of the guys points northward, and there, out of the snow, is a human knee. Immediately, they go get the rest of the search party, and people begin to dig frantically. And it turns out there's not just one body under this patch of snow, but 2. They are both men, and they are lying side by side. Neither of them are wearing jackets or pants, and the clothes that are remaining on them are kind of torn and shredded. It looks like something got at one of the boys' faces, like an animal or something, and neither of them are wearing shoes. Plus, they are almost a mile from the site of their abandoned tent. So already the state of these bodies is quite strange, and it's actually a search dog that finds the next body. It's the group leader, and he is kind of curled, frozen around a birch tree where he had been buried in the snow, and the snow drifts as it continued with the weather and everything, and he was just sort of curled around it. His wristwatch was stopped at 5:31. He is also shoeless and is wearing mismatched socks. Then one of the girls is found. She's laying in the snow, blood caked on her face, and she's kind of curled into herself, and also her legs look as if she was taking a step and then just collapsed, as if she was like mid-walk when she fell over into this snowdrift and then was covered up. And she also is shoeless. 2 whole months go by before another body is found, and the searchers are getting tired, they're getting desperate, and they're starting to feel like it'll never end. Then one day they sort of stumble across this pile of clothes under the snow, just like discarded clothes. So they start digging and digging and digging. They dug so much that it was into a space that would be 100 feet wide and at points 8 feet deep. And it's here that they found the remaining bodies. They're in a sort of creek bed under the snow, and one of them is wearing 2 wristwatches, interestingly. One is wearing 2 socks on one foot and none on the other. One is wrapped in a torn sweater, and 2 of them are locked in this frozen embrace, probably trying to conserve the last of their warmth and energy together. The way these deaths were handled is kind of mysterious in itself. There was a big to-do about the bodies, the first bodies that were discovered at the start of the search, being buried, and the government didn't want them brought back to their local town. They just wanted it to be done with, but the families pushed and wanted them back. There was talk of some of the government officials and soldiers being possibly strangely involved in this, and just the fact that there is no reason why, like there's no easily understood reason why experienced hikers who are used to this climate, they're on a really uninhabited place in Russia, it's freezing, they know they will die, they know how to survive in this, and yet they just got up and walked out of their tent. It doesn't make any sense. And the more people study this, the more tests have been done, the weirder things seem to be. Like, it's big and then small and then big and then small again, where it's just confusing. Further evidence of the tent later showed that in a back corner, it had actually been cut out. So cut not from the outside in, but cut as if they had to get out and get out quickly. That's a theory anyway. Someone actually analyzed the fabric to see which way a point would have gone through it, and it would have been from the inside out. It's just really strange, yet everything inside looks so neat and tidy. It's really confusing. There are so many theories, and we're never going to know. But there's theories, there's alien conspiracy theories, there's USSR government conspiracy theories, that there is some sort of testing out there, or they saw something they weren't supposed to see. The author of the book I'm basing this video on has a different theory entirely, a more natural, scientific one, where he thinks it's something sort of naturally occurring, but still rare, that would have caused these people to kind of lose their rationale as they're making these decisions to survive or to not survive, and to actually perish under such strange circumstances. Weirder still, some of the bodies were not just passed from hypothermia. Most of them were, but several of them had high impact blows that the coroner said could be classified and should be classified as a violent death. We're talking broken ribs, a head injury. So how did this happen? No matter how crazy the theory is, the bottom line is we will likely never know what happened at the Dyatlov Pass incident. We'll probably never have concrete answers. But my question to you is, do you have any theories? If you're curious about this story and just Soviet-era Russia in general, I would highly encourage you to read more by checking out this book by Donnie Eichar, Dead Mountain. It's a fantastic book. It is what got me interested in Russian history in the first place. A lot of mystery. It's kind of an adventure book at the same time, a cultural book. Really, really fantastic. I hope you'll check it out. If you liked this video, give it a thumbs up and tune in next week for episode 5 of Nonfiction Friday. The first season of Nonfiction Friday is experimental, so be sure to leave a thumbs up and drop a comment below, letting me know if you enjoy this so I can decide if I want to make a season 2. Thanks so much for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead, press that subscribe button, and I will see you on the next one. Thanks for watching. Bye, guys.